New House Democratic leadership is starting to take shape. Since Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Majority Leader Steny Hoyer, and Majority Whip James Clyburn announced that they are stepping back from these specific leadership roles, candidates for each have emerged. Hakeem Jeffries of New York, Katherine Clark of Massachusetts, and Pete Aguilar of California have announced their intention to run for the number 1, 2, and 3 spots, respectively. And Congressman Clyburn announced his bid now to be the 4th-ranking Democrat in the next Congress. But before we dive into that news, let's reflect for a moment on what's arguably the biggest headline of the week. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, a legislative juggernaut, a fundraising titan, a woman who, through both her triumphs and missteps, served at the vanguard of liberal politics for decades, announced her intention this week to step back from her role leading House Democrats.
For me, the hours come for a new generation to lead the Democratic caucus that I so deeply respect. And I'm grateful that so many are ready and willing to shoulder this awesome responsibility.
Now, it's hard to convey just how momentous a change this will be for Capitol Hill, and it's almost impossible to put into words the legacy of Nancy Pelosi. And from the beginning of her congressional career, Nancy Pelosi has been a stalwart defender of democracy. In 1991, she risked her life to defy the Chinese government and display a banner commemorating the Tiananmen Square protesters, literally at Tiananmen Square. She'd used that grit to her advantage countless times throughout her career, whether it be in working with President Bush to tackle the HIV/AIDS crisis and pass PEPFAR, the single largest commitment by any nation to address a single disease in history, or rallying House Democrats when all seemed lost in the fight for Obamacare, or uniting progressives and moderates within her coalition to pass the lion's share of President Biden's legislative agenda. She was and is a once-in-a-generational political talent. There's no doubt about it. And that's all the more clear now that we have gotten a glimpse of what's likely to come in her wake. As Kevin McCarthy embraces far-right radicals who deny the election, have bigoted beliefs, and advocates for dangerous policies, all so that he can wield the Speaker's gavel in the next Congress. That is the bargain he is making. In stepping back as leader of the Democrats, but not retiring, Nancy Pelosi has offered one last masterclass in political strategy. With Pelosi staying in Congress rather than creating a temporary vacancy, Kevin McCarthy and Republicans are under more pressure to produce majority votes. What's more, Pelosi's denying Kevin McCarthy a boogeyman that he could use to twist arms to get the 218-plus votes he needs to be Speaker. Because if there's one thing Nancy Pelosi knows how to do well, it is make Republicans squirm. So prospective new leaders, take note. Joining me now is Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Dingell of Michigan. Congresswoman, it's great to see you again. Thank you so much for coming back on the program. I want to start with, if I can, a personal question for you. I know you and Speaker Pelosi have grown quite close over the years. Talk to me about your relationship with her on a personal level and your thoughts on her decision to step back.
It's good to be with you tonight. I have a very complicated relationship with Speaker Pelosi. I love her. I have been on the good side of Nancy, and I've been on the bad side of Nancy, the winning and the losing. But I think she is, without fail, one of the most toughest, strongest, courageous women I know, and at the same time has taken all of the skills as a woman. That as a young woman, when I was in business, you know, it used to be you didn't think that you could do it all. You couldn't be a mother and have a career. Nancy has shown people that women can juggle multiple balls in the air, and you bring that perspective of one world to your other world. She learned how to listen. She knew when to be empathetic. She knew when to be passionate. She knew when to be tough. And she has opened the door wider for every woman around the world. And what she has done in so many things will impact generations upon generations of people to come.
When discussing Pelosi's major accomplishments, lots of people point to what she did with the Affordable Care Act, and even more recently, President Biden's legislative agenda with all that has been passed in the first 2 years of his term in office. What stands out in your mind? You have a much broader context of what has been accomplished from inside Congress. What stands out to you?
Well, clearly the Affordable Care Act is one of the most important things. It's something that my family has cared about forever. You know, Nancy and I have so many similarities in that we both had different careers before we came to, she was a homemaker. We both came up through party politics to the jobs that we had. My husband was certainly a child and member of the House forever. Her family was a member believed in public service. But healthcare is just something that my father-in-law was the first person to introduce universal healthcare, 1940, after he was one of the authors of Social Security. Nancy never gave up. She worked with people. She knew she had to bring the coalition of different perspectives and different people together. And when that Affordable Care Bill went through, she had the spine and the backbone to not give up, not let people give up. You saw what happened in the 90s when Bill Clinton tried to get something through. Nancy Pelosi is singularly the person that deserves the most credit for getting that bill done.
If Kevin McCarthy wields the Speaker's gavel in the next Congress, do you think he will have the success Speaker Pelosi had?
Well, first of all, I don't ever wish for somebody not to be successful, because if we get policies passed that help every American, that is something we should all be doing. But by the way, I think that the Republican caucus now is so focused on oversight and they're so divided within themselves that they need to understand the American people are still worried about a lot of issues and they want to see us get something done. I think Kevin McCarthy's first got to get the votes to become Speaker. You saw what happened to Paul Ryan when he was Speaker. It's a tough, tough job. And you got to have an agenda. I don't know what their Republican agenda is, quite frankly, for the next Congress. So I think he has a lot of challenges ahead. I don't wish him not to succeed for the American people, but I think he's going to be very challenged. And I, of course, would like to see Democrats take back the House in 2024.
There was an interesting development this week, and perhaps it offers some insight. You had Republican Congressman Don Bacon say that if conservatives don't unite around Kevin McCarthy, he is open to working with Democrats to elect a moderate alternative. Do you see that as a possibility in Congress? Would you support that?
Well, you need to see how scenarios play out. I think that it would have been something that would have been very real had we not seen so many moderate Republicans, those who voted for impeachment or expressed concern about January 6th or actually voted to support how the American people voted in the last election. Not election deniers aren't in the Congress. So I don't know how many Don Bacons are really left in the Congress. But I think America sent Republicans and Democrats a message on Election Day, and that election deniers and the normalization of violence and that democracy was at stake, and that the American people are paying attention to that issue.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt in American politics, talk is cheap. It's all about what people actually do. I want to get your thoughts on the likely next House Democratic leadership teams that has emerged. You have Representatives Jeffries, Clark, and Aguilar. What do you think of this leadership team in its current construct?
Look, I've known all three of them for a long time. They're all close friends. They're all are up to this task. They're strong, effective people. But you know what's unique about the way that this transition is occurring is that they're going to have the wisdom and the knowledge of Nancy Pelosi, Steny Hoyer, and Jim Clyburn. And anybody who doesn't think that those three are not going to still be very strong leaders in this Congress, who understand the dynamics, the ebbs and flows, the different needs of members to be heard, to be understood, to be part of the strategizing. And I don't think there isn't one of three, but I know that Nancy Pelosi and Steny, and Jim, all three of them are not, when they think someone is not doing what they need to do, they will have the backs of all three of those leaders as they move into these.
Yeah, I was going to say they may not have the titles, but will they still have the power?
Yeah, I'm a student of this institution.
Right.
And the respect that a member has, the relationship, people forget the importance of a relationship.
Yeah.
These are people with very strong relationships. I've seen some losses for the record. My husband lost a very difficult chairman's race that Nancy Pelosi was on the other side of. And it was very important to me that when I came to Congress, I have my own relationship with Nancy Pelosi and that there be no history connected to it. But you will not talk to anybody from President Obama on down that will not tell you that that Affordable Care Act wouldn't have passed without John Dingell working so closely with Nancy Pelosi. And these are human organizations that relationships very much matter in.
Congressman, final question. You've announced your bid for vice chair of the House Democratic Caucus. Talk to us about that and why you felt the need to do it.
Well, it's going to be probably the most watched race in the leadership races. I'm doing it because I, first of all, believe that mid-America, the Midwest and going down that southern, is where elections are won and lost, and that it's very important that we have representation from mid-America in that top leadership. It's frequently the coasts that have the representation, and quite frankly, there are no chairmen from the Midwest or mid-America either. That's one of them. Two, I have a long record of bringing people of disparate issues together. One of the reasons the EV announcement was made at the White House a year ago was because I brought the environmentalists, the labor unions together, 6 months of talks and negotiations, and then brought the OEMs in. So I know how to actually get things done, and I'm not afraid to say what needs to be said, which sometimes isn't ever. You don't want to step on toes. I will say what needs to be said in the room.
We're lucky for you. We're lucky to have you say what needs to be said sometimes, certainly in our line of work. Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, always appreciate it. Best of luck to you in your pursuits, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Be safe.
You too. Up